Hello and welcome to Attacking Third. I'm Lisa Roman, your host, NWSL analyst and broadcaster, joined by my lovely friends. Tonight, Lori Lindsey is back, former U.S. Women's National Team superstar and NWSL analyst. And we welcome, for the very first time to Attacking Third, NWSL reporter, MLS reporter, CBS Sports reporter, Olympics reporter, Marisa Pilla. Marisa, welcome to Attacking Third.
Yay,
so happy to
Marisa.
be here. Long-time listener, first-time guest. So really, really pleased to be here with you, Lisa and Lori.
Oh, thank you. We are so excited. We have such a big weekend of NWSL games. We thought we'd have 5 matches to recap. Turns out there was only 4. We'll cover that for you later. And as a spoiler alert, draws across the board, but we'll get there. You both were at the Orlando game in Orlando. How was that? How's Orlando? Lori,
Hot.
What have you done in Orlando?
Yes, I mean, Marisa just said it. Hot, humid, definitely. We're still recovering from the game, and we didn't even play. But awesome weekend. Have some good friends on the Orlando team, so good to catch up with them and meet Ashton and Allie's little baby girl, Sloan. So lots of fun, and I think, just it's good to be back on site, live in these games, and, we've been sending Marisa out for a year on her own, and now we have to be with her on these weekends. But
yeah, it's
good,
just
yeah.
they've just been shipping me out, hoping I come back with the mic flags. And it's been working. But now I have to deal with Lori, who I don't know if she can hear this, but she is such a diva. So just having to deal with that on the road on top of everything else, it's a lot. But I love my job, and that's what I tell myself.
Hey, you have to love what you do when you're standing in the heat and the humidity and just sweat dripping down all over your backs. Probably more sweaty than the players, right? The makeup. I get it, guys. I get it. Well, thanks for joining us. Big weekend that we need to recap. But first, some very exciting news in the NWSL. The championship site, it has been announced. Finally, the Portland Thorns Providence Park will play host to the 2021 NWSL Championship match. This will take place on Saturday, November 20th. This game will be on CBS Sports. As a reminder for everyone, it's an expanded playoff format this season. For the very first time, the top 6 teams from the regular season make the postseason, with the top 2 teams getting a first round bye. And the Thorns currently sitting at the top of the table with 32 points. It has been hosted at Providence Park before in 2015 and in 2018. And Lori and Marisa, I've read this. I was excited for the announcement. My biggest shock factor, that this game will be kicking off at 9 a.m. local.
Listen, I know something about that, right? And in our old league, the WPS, I was playing with the Philadelphia Independents, and we made it to the final against the San Jose team, and it was a 10 a.m. kickoff. And we ended up losing 3-0. I mean, they were the better team.
What do you do, though? Like, how do you even wake up and be ready to go? Because I'm barely ready to talk.
Well, clearly, did you just hear the scoreline? Clearly, we didn't. We didn't even wake up.
I should have asked you anything.
And the joke was, Paul Riley was our coach at the time, and he gave us this amazing, pregame speech prior to the game the night before. And he's like, "Oh, we should have just played the game the night before. Done a little better." So it will be interesting. Let's see how this goes. But 9 a.m.
Going to be a lot of Portland coffee and probably not a lot of sleep. But I mean, so exciting. Portland always brings a great crowd. I would love to see Portland in the final, have like a Tampa Bay Super Bowl situation out there for them, especially this being Mark Parsons' last couple games with the Thorns before he leaves. So I'd like to see them kind of ride off into the sunset with him. He's put so much great work into the program and just making them continual winners. I'd like to see them go out on top at home. I think that'd be great.
It would be very exciting for the team to play at home. And as everyone has talked about, and anyone who's visited that stadium or played in that stadium, it is a very tough place to play, no matter who is playing at home there, if it doesn't happen to be the Portland Thorns. But I will check back in with you ladies as we get closer to that to find out what your breakfast is going to be and what time your alarms are set, because I am very curious.
Lori's breakfast is going to be gummy bears, so you don't even have to follow up. It's just some sugar.
That and donuts.
Yeah.
Moving on from our news, we have a very full weekend of games ahead of us. It started off on Saturday with Gotham versus Chicago Red Stars. This game, Lori, we did not predict this, ending in a 0-0 tie. And for Gotham, this was the first game officially under new head coach Scott Parkinson. He was not available for this match due to a prior family commitment. However, assistant Becky Tweed acted as the head coach alongside the new assistant, Bev Gobel Yanez, excuse me. But a scoreless draw. Interesting, very, very, very interesting game. I mean, all of the games interesting this weekend, I must say, for draws. Sometimes we don't always get that, but this goal early in the second half for Chicago was called back due to an offsides play. But the first 15 minutes for me was when Chicago took off. They were connecting passes and moving forward. Casey Kruger had a shot off the post in the first 3 minutes or so. Is pretty evenly played throughout. Marisa, when you watch this match, what specifically stood out for you for these teams?
I think kind of what you're talking about in terms of the chemistry that's building there. And we see that in kind of bits and pieces with Chicago. Sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. But when they're on, they're really fun to watch. You know, when things aren't connecting as well as they could be, it's kind of, you don't know who this team is. But when they're able to get all those fine details in place, you can see what they're building towards. I think it's really interesting that they're unbeaten in their last 3 matches. They've picked up 5 points over that stretch. So, yeah, I mean, 2 of them were draws, but you're getting points. And at this point in the season, that's what matters. We know how tight these standings are. Chicago has made it very, very clear they want to be in the postseason. I remember at the beginning of this season, Rory Dame said they're still not over 2019. So they're not even over losing that 2019 final. 2020, almost in Chicago's mind, didn't happen like the rest of us who were trying to get over it. So for him, it's redemption. For this team, it's still redemption to getting into those finals, showing that Chicago is a team that needs to be taken seriously. And I think that they have these great moments where they're proving what they want to be proving.
For this matchup specifically, Kaitlyn Sheridan for Gotham in goal, 5 saves against Chicago. It was really the attack of Pugh and Watt up top and the combination play that's hopefully coming into fruition there for Chicago. Like, how do they keep getting more goals, Lori?
You know, I think it'll just be about execution. I think for a lot of these teams, the margins are so fine. We saw that, as you mentioned, ties across the board. So it's really just going to come down to, honestly, who's taking their chances, who's reading what the opposition is giving you, because there's not a ton of difference amongst all these teams. I mean, we're seeing how tight everything is, how, you know, in some ways, when I say how tight everything is, not only in the standings, but the way that some of these teams are playing, knowing that these points are at a premium. So I think at some point in time, it's just going to be about who's willing to take some of those risks, but take the risks in the final third while managing what they're giving away as well, and just cleaning some things up, because everyone's taking advantage of any sort of mistakes, really pouncing on it. So it's no different for Chicago than it is for like a North Carolina or some of these other teams. It's about finding the back of the net and who's going to step up for your team. And if that's Watt, if that's Pugh, and we've seen that when Sam Kerr's there. They need somebody that's willing to say, hey, I'm going to step up and be the leader and actually be the true goal scorer. Because I would say that is the only real situation with Chicago right now. Is it's like, who are you looking to? And when you're a championship team, you have to have somebody that you can rely on when things aren't necessarily going your way. You need to know somebody that you can be like, yep, here's somebody that's going to put this in the back of the net and kind of turn the tides when needed, for sure. So, and Lise, remind me, what was our prediction? I can't remember. It's been a long weekend. Give it to me.
I don't remember. I think I had Chicago.
We need live viewers here.
It's definitely 2-1, Marisa. Yes.
Okay.
I'm glad I know, guys.
It's a long weekend. We do a lot of episodes, Marisa. I'm glad you did your homework and listened.
Listen, from a Gotham standpoint, that's a huge point. Had gone winless. Right, coaching change, a lot of overhaul there. Scott Parkinson's not even available. We knew that was the potential possibility coming into this game for them to pick up a point. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think they have one more game, and there's been a little bit of a schedule change. They're going to have a couple weeks off or so.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes in this point in the season, that's not always great. after you've been in like kind of a typical schedule of like a game per week or so. But I think for whoa, that was a weird mistake.
Gotham,
everyone,
Lori.
Gotham FC. In 2019, everybody. For Gotham, though, I think that is really important this time because it gives Scott Parkinson, it gives Bevianas an opportunity to like really solidify some of the principles that they want to bring in. And it might not be a whole slew of time, but enough to kind of get those down, headed into like a really, really critical point in the season.
No, I totally agree. When I saw that on the schedule, I was like, oh my gosh, that must be such a relief for this team because they haven't won since it's been announced that Freya Kuhn was leaving and then ultimately left. So for them to have just a second to collect themselves and not have to worry about, hey, there's so much pressure on us right now because we actually need to get results. We need to put points on the board. We can actually settle, get to know Scott Parkinson, have him get to know us as his actual team and not the opposition. And actually put something together in that very crucial last stretch.
And injuries play such a big part at this point in the season. When you talk about a team like Gotham, Midge Purse is still out. Margaret Purse is still out with injury. So this break ahead for Gotham could prove really well for her in getting some rest and recovery. And then on the Chicago side, Lori, you mentioned the consistency and having someone be that really consistent goal scorer. We saw Vanessa DiBernardo back in the midfield for Chicago for the first time in over a month. She was out due to concussion protocol. So getting some of those numbers back in there to complete the squads of 11, the starting 11 that these teams want to see at this point in the season, that needs to happen every single week. So a break might be really good for these teams, but otherwise Chicago and Gotham splitting points in the opening match of the weekend. Moving on, it was Racing Louisville versus OL Reign. This one ends in another draw. That's a big theme for today's episode. However, goals in this one, 1-1. It was the first match for interim head coach Mario Sanchez after Christy Holly was terminated from Racing Louisville. This game was rainy. It was not that pretty of soccer due to the rain. The ball was in the air a lot. It was the third match for OL Reign in 6 days. So no Megan Rapinoe. She did not travel. She was on the injury report list. And Jess Fishlock and Quinn did not start the match. They came in the 60th minute around. And honestly, that substitute with Fishlock and Quinn did change the game for OL Reign. And when I look at these starting lineups and it was missing Fishlock and Quinn, I also looked at Racing Louisville for interim head coach Mario Sanchez. He put Emily Fox, the standout left back for Racing Louisville throughout this entire season, on the right side in the back. She switched from the left to the right. She's a left-footed player. He was already making moves in his first match of this season for Racing Louisville after stepping in, but goals coming from Nadia Nadim in the 23rd minute for Racing Louisville getting on the board first, a huge transition goal for Nadim. And then late in the second half, OL Reign responded, and not surprisingly at all, a header from Bethany Balser. It was her 8th goal of the season, making her the Golden Boot leader as of now, and assisted from Sofia Huerta, who is in that outside back position. I love to see these positional changes from Laura Harvey. It's great to see.
Yeah, we got to see Sofia Huerta play that position, and we also got to hear from Laura Harvey, and her Huerta's response was, hey, if you want me to be there, I will be there for you. And I love when players have that response and are able to be open to a transition, because a lot of times too, you identify with your position. Oh, I'm this kind of player. I play this kind of way. And to be able to be flexible like that for the good of the team, knowing that they're trying all that they can to get their absolute best players on the field, and moving Huerta to an outside back has done just that. And I mean, I'm a huge Bethany Balser fan, from going undrafted to Rookie of the Year to now Golden Boot winner. I love that. But I was a little heartbroken that she crushed Racing Louisville, because for them to have walked away with a win in this match, I think would have meant so much. But for me, this game was all about the post-game reaction from Mario Sanchez, from Michelle Betos. They had such impassioned speeches after this game wrapped up to their team, just saying, we couldn't be prouder. Michelle Betos said, when's the last time we all felt this proud of a performance where we all left it out on the field like that? And she's like, it's been a while. There were a lot of F-bombs dropped in that speech from both of them, but you need that sometimes. And you could see how much Mario Sanchez he was just so impassioned in that speech. And I love seeing that, because he even acknowledged this has been a tough week for you guys, referencing to the players. And he can't imagine what they've been going through. And for them to show up the way they did and to work so hard for each other spoke volumes for him to be able to see. And I'm excited to see what happens. I'm hopeful. These players deserve a good ending to this season. So I'm hoping this kind of starts to trend in a positive direction for them.
Racing Louisville getting on the board first, Lori, and like Marisa said, they almost had that win, so close to the end of it. But the progression of this Louisville team, and especially up against a red hot OL Reign team who has been on a winning dominant streak over the last few weeks, is this something we're going to see more of from Racing Louisville going forward, Lori?
I think so, but I do remember when we were talking about this in the preview I think sometimes this can go either way. Like with a coaching change, it could be a really bright thing for the future of a team, because it really reignites, it brings some teams together, or it could go the other way. And I think after the performance that we saw this weekend, it looks like the former is going to be the case. This team is going to be ignited. There's already seems to have been a bond amongst the players. And I think the only situation that's a bit tough for them is that they are a young team, right? Because when you look at this matchup in particular, is really experience of OL Reign versus kind of that youth who are just gaining experience. A lot of these players starting to learn what a full NWSL season is like, playing 90 minutes week in and week out, with a lot of them had been subs on their previous teams before being taken in an expansion draft or from the college draft. So I think this is a huge opportunity, though, for this club in general to be able to take steps forward in terms of growth, in terms of leadership. We see Michelle Betos, as Marisa is mentioning, already step up in countless ways, I think, throughout the season. But it really is the McCaskells, Emily Fox, regardless of where they're playing, can they take a step forward quicker than you would think in their maturation process? So huge point for them, because I was a little bit unsure on how this was going to go. And I think it's awesome for this club. And for OL Reign, wow. I mean, listen, look out. They're my favorite right now, because, I mean, what they've overcome at the beginning, then to see Laura Harvey bring in the excitement to this team, and the strides that they've made in 3 games in 8 days, is fantastic, at this point in time in the season. And you mentioned Jess Fishlock and Quinn coming off the bench. For those players to make an impact that they're doing in all of these games, regardless if they're starting or not, that's what you need. And we talk about the difference makers, and that team is really stepping up in the ways with the rotation of players that are needed in this stretch, in this run to get into the playoffs.
And OL Reign also now has a little bit of a break, because they don't play again until next weekend, which could be good for players on that injury list, and just minute management of these high-level players, especially in the midfield with Fishlock and Quinn, who didn't get the start, but definitely game changers when they step onto the field, just being creative in the attack, which it's hard to do. And man, Fishlock makes it look so easy. Lori, I love that you dubbed OL Reign as your favorite. I'm going to come back to you on that one throughout the rest of the season and see if it stays the same or not. But another tie, OL Reign and Racing Louisville 1-1. And the last match for Saturday ended up not being played. We were hoping to recap 5, but unfortunately only 4 tonight. Portland versus Washington Spirit. The morning of this game on Saturday, news came out of Washington Spirit that 4 players had tested positive for COVID-19. This game being postponed versus Portland Thorns due to this league's positive testing protocol. It will be rescheduled once the health and safety protocols have all been cleared up. The league will make an announcement, but there's a lot of news in this league, ladies, that I honestly cannot keep up with. If you put your phone down and you get off Twitter for about an hour, you're going to miss something. And now neither of these teams getting to play after Spirit having already traveled to Portland Thorns and Providence Park. But now no match being played. Is there any word from the inside from our lovely talent here about this match and what's going to happen when it'll be played?
I don't have any word. I just want to give out to shout out to your primary host, Sandra Herrera, though, and her Twitter and her outfit yesterday. And she's on vacation, and then she logs in and she's telling us how she grew up on telenovelas, and here she is. Like, I can't put my phone down, and because this is the news that's breaking left and right. So you're exactly right. I mean, shout out to Sandra, who's amazing, and who's trying to take vacation and she can't with this league. So honestly, I don't have any inside information. I think it's the right thing, though, at this point in time. Safety first for these players. I think it does bring up some interesting questions in terms of vaccination and what that looks like for players, because safety and health amongst everybody is the most important. And so really need to take a better, I don't know if better is the right word, but a stronger look at taking steps forward in that regard, because I think, this can't happen. And for these players to travel across country and then have to be calling off a game at this point in time, to me it's the right call. And also it's always an opportunity to take a deeper look into next steps.
Hopefully a little bit of honesty from players speaking up and saying, I'm vaccinated, I'm not, because the safety and the health overall is the biggest concern. So yes, unfortunate to have this one postponed, but definitely the right call considering the circumstances and everything that is going on. But if you didn't learn this weekend or this season, stay up to date with the NWSL news, because every 10 minutes it seems to be changing. It really does. And I love the shout out to Sandra's outfit. Fire, Sandra. Straight fire.
I mean, listen, Sandra needs to be one of those ones that comes through the tunnel pregame. I'm trying to get that as well. So Sandra, join us.
Listen, Lori brings it with game day outfits.
But listen, Sandra's going to break the internet. She already did. And then we need her to be in the game day outfits as well with the players. So come on, Sandra, when you're off of vacation.
She'll be back with me soon. I miss her. It's lovely to have you guys, though. Well, that was it for Saturday. 3 games, two ties we saw across the board, and 1 postponement. We have Sunday matches to get to, of course, after this very quick break. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Attacking Third. Lisa Roman alongside Lori Lindsey and Marisa Pilla. We talked about Saturday, a pair of ties, and guess what? Sunday's matches, a few more ties that we need to discuss. Starting off, it was the space race, Orlando versus Houston, ending in a tie, of course, 1-1. Goals from Taylor Korniak for Orlando and Rachel Daly of Houston, and Lori on the call as the analyst, Marisa on the sideline, both sweating, both had great eyes on this game talking about it. Lori, overall, this matchup, what did you take away, especially from Orlando throughout this game?
Yeah, I think in general, the biggest takeaway is this is probably a fair result for both teams, right? Like for Houston, I know you asked about Orlando, but I'll just say this. For Houston, it was really about a good 15 minutes in the first 15 minutes of this game. They've conceded goals, they've given up soft goals, they've had to chase games, and they put some pressure on early, got a goal. I thought had control of the game the majority of it. And then in the second half, after the unfortunate Ashlyn Harris injury, credit to Orlando Pride, really started working their way into the game, showed more urgency and energy with movement of the ball. The space started opening up. Listen, it was hot and humid for both teams. They would be used to that, right? It's not like that's foreign for Houston. However, you're kind of wondering those questions about Orlando playing at home, having a week off. Where was that throughout the match, right? Why are you waiting to yourself to go down 1-0 early on and have to chase this match? But they didn't panic. I thought there's some good movement of the ball late in the game, and Taylor Korniak, that's what you want from your substitutes. And I think this is a player that stepped up in an interesting way. We saw her pretty one-dimensional, the way that the Pride played early on in the season. Now being asked to play a little bit of a different role deeper in the midfield, we're starting to see some of her different attributes shine, which we talked about in the broadcast. And listen, no one's going to deny how good she is in the air. I mean, arguably one of the best in the league, if not the best, right? And I mean, they did well, got a corner kick, and she made him pay. And then right before that earned him. It was a great save from Jane Campbell to make the save that resulted in the corner kick. So Korniak coming on right away, making an impact. And honestly, at this point in time, that's what you need for this, because we keep talking about how close these teams are. It sounds cliche, but the truth is that's the deal this season, right? I mean, points are needed, and anytime you can have players coming off your bench and stepping up in ways. Credit to Korniak. I thought she was excellent when she came in.
The goalkeepers this weekend definitely played so well. Neither of them getting a clean sheet in this match, but I mean, against Rachel Daly, how impressive is that? I mean, Marisa, you were there roaming the sidelines, eavesdropping in on all of the bench talk.
Always.
What'd you learn for us?
Eavesdropping. That's so true.
I'm a professional eavesdropper. Yeah. You know,
Creeping
growing
around.
up as the youngest child, I really honed my eavesdropping skills. So I think, I'm kind of in the right industry for now. But as Lori was saying, I think this game had a lot of different layers and a lot of different things that we were looking for that didn't necessarily pan out, especially when talking about Orlando's start to the game. I thought we were going to see them kind of connect a little bit more. Becky Burleigh was very much adamant about keeping it simple in the attack. 1-2 passes. You don't have to thread the needle. You don't have to do the most complicated thing to get forward. And the rhythm just wasn't there for them. But credit to this team that they stuck with it, because at a certain point, it felt like it was never going to come. And it felt like they had a couple little looks, but nothing really to create a big enough spark. And Houston, if they got this win, they were going to jump all the way to 4th in the standings, from way outside the playoff positioning to inside, nice and comfy above that line. So a lot was on the line for them too. And what we talked about, what Lori mentioned about how Taylor Korniak has been, asked to play a different role. That's what she wants to play. She wants to show that she's more than just her height. And I talked to Allie Krieger before the game, and she told me really what Becky Burleigh has brought into this team is just the confidence that they know how to play, where before maybe it was just like the game plan was more so, let's worry about what the opposition is going to do. And when you get the ball, just shoot it down the field. And, Krieger was just kind of like, we're good enough to play, and Burleigh lets us play, and they played into the match. They got themselves back in, and when teams want to win, they find a way to do it.
The response of the players to interim head coach Becky Burleigh for Orlando Pride has just been tremendous. And I think that really shows on the field with what she's doing with the players and what she's allowing them to do and play to their own personal strengths and doing well. A number of injuries in this match. I know Ashlyn Harris went off. Any injury updates from my people on the ground there, Lori?
No, but I'm hoping that Ashlyn is okay. That seemed to be the worst of the injuries. I saw Rachel Daly go down late in the game as well, and Shea Groom in the first half. She ended up coming off in the second. But Ashlyn, obviously the worst of them. But hopefully, it's not even a concussion. Hopefully, she's just shooken up from the knock. So fingers crossed for that one. But a shout out to Erin McLeod, Olympic gold medalist for Canada. I think anytime you have somebody that experienced to be able to come in and with a composure, one of the reasons, in my opinion, that they were able to come back in, get back into this game, because anytime you have the confidence for somebody that can step in as a sub in a vital position at a time in a game like that, then really needed. So good job for her.
Yeah, great job by Erin McLeod for sure. This game ending in a 1-1 tie, our third of the weekend between Orlando and Houston, our third, but not our final match. Kansas City versus North Carolina, another draw, 0-0 this time.
Listen, we're gonna need some wins.
How does this happen? Lori, we knew in our preview, we gave score predictions and we gave a disclaimer at the end that for all disclosure, these score lines could be completely wrong because this is the league and things change constantly. I think we had one draw throughout our preview, but no way could we have guessed that 4 of the 5 would be draws. One, of course, not being played, but this one between Kansas City and North Carolina. For North Carolina, this is their 5th straight shutout. They have not lost a game since July 17th. A great goalkeeping from both sides of the field in this one to keep it scoreless. 5 saves for AD Franch and Kansas City, 6 saves for Casey Murphy. But Kansas City, a team that, as I've been watching them from May up until now in September, has truly grown. The depth of their squad and the trades that they've made, it's been slow and it's been a progress, but they take a point off of North Carolina tonight. Well, 2 points after splitting this one with the 3 points on the tie. Marisa, overall with Kansas City, especially in this match and looking towards the rest of the season, what did you see from them? What do you want to see more of from Kansas City and Hugh Williams?
I think, well, for starters, they're trending in the right direction. They're 2-0-1 in their last 3 matches. As we said, it's important to pick up points. That's exactly what they're doing. And you kind of hit it spot on. The trades that they're making, the moves that they're making, they're not afraid right now to shake things up, being kind of a new team. They're not quite the old Kansas City. They're not Utah. They had to create a whole identity separate to what existed last year and what existed in the same city just a few years ago. It's a big undertaking. And I think that they're really doing that. Hugh Williams, you can tell how dedicated he is. I mean, from the beginning of the season on, anyone who's been paying attention knows that he takes a lot of pride in being in this job. And going forward, I want to see them just play with even more confidence. I think that they're getting pieces now that start to complement one another a little bit more, and it's making more sense onto the field. And I think that, I don't want to say that they're a shoo-in to make the playoffs. I think they have a long, long way to go, but I think that they're trending in the right direction. And if they can just find ways to pick up little points here and there, it could be a good thing for them going forward.
For North Carolina, Lori, it's to a Chucky egg. No goals for them. We talked about their attacking presence and what they have and how they can do well against a Kansas City team with McDonald and Lynn Williams, Dabinia, Rodriguez, who also got the start, and also the formation change-ups there. But for North Carolina, obviously a tie tonight, but nothing on the board. Not a lot of shots on goal. How does their offensive production change and become higher throughout the rest of the season?
Listen, I don't know, because the joke's on us at these score lines, right? Like, no one ever predicted this, and credit to Kansas City because they seem to have North Carolina's number. I mean, they made these trades specifically between these two teams, and Kansas City hasn't looked back against North Carolina, which is typically one of the toughest teams to play in this league. I think there's a couple of things, though. With North Carolina, listen, there were some major defensive woes at the beginning of this season, leaking goals in ways that we haven't seen a Courage team do in, I would say, a long time, but I think just ever. And now to get these shutouts, that is a massive step forward. Again, heading into a crucial time. If things continue to trend, like they will make the playoffs, right? And the last thing you want to be doing is giving up unnecessary goals. So great on that area, but now it's about putting the pieces together. And sometimes that just takes a little bit of time on both sides of the ball. But I do find it interesting. You're talking about 4 of the best strikers in the world, right? Not just in this league. I mean, some players that have produced some really important goals throughout their career: Lynn Williams, Jess McDonald, Dabinia, Amy Rodriguez, right? And I think sometimes it does take a little bit of time to mesh. Clearly, the 3 of Dabinia, Lynn, and Jess have played together, but then you add in a different wrinkle with Amy Rodriguez. That does take time, right? However, it is even with not, there is just a common language. So I'll be curious of what some of those conversations are happening, and hopefully there's still some just calmness and there's not panic because they have put themselves in a good position still in this playoff race. But on the flip side, Kansas City, right? They've done a good job. They're starting to come together. I mean, I'll say it. It's a good thing because, in most professional sports, Hugh Williams would not be there with their record that they had at the beginning of the season. That would just be the case, right? It would be cutthroat. But they have stuck with him. He's been a major part. I really enjoy talking with him. And as Marisa said, they have pushed the limits in terms of making trades and having an idea of what they want to do. And I think it's naive for us to sit here and say that it would be easy for North Carolina to score against them, because I do think Kansas City has become a much more difficult team to play against as of late, bringing in A.D. Franch and just shoring some things up, making some rotations defensively. So I think that is important to note against North Carolina, because these are not easy teams to walk through.
Not
Lori,
at all. Yeah,
Lori,
ahead,
does Paul Riley ever hit the panic button? Does he even have one?
Yeah, I think Paul Riley is. He might not be saying it to the public, but he's in there telling, like, what the hell's going on? Like, pick it up. Let's go. Enough's enough. So I do think that they'll start to click. And next weekend, actually, huge game, should be fun against Portland for North Carolina. So
a huge game looking ahead. And as we've talked about throughout this entire episode, throughout this entire season, teams need to win and they need to get 3 points week in and week out to stay in the top 6 standings. Top 6 make playoffs at the end of this. And now we have a location in Portland, Providence Park. But let's take a look at these standings before we close out this episode. Not too much has changed. Remember, ties across the board. So 1 point each for every team. Portland Thorns, they stay at number 1, 32 points. North Carolina Courage, number 2, 29 points. OL Reigns sitting at 3rd place, 29 points. Orlando Pride and Chicago Red Stars, 4 and 5, both with 25 points. Washington Spirit, number 6, 23 points. And that's the top 6 as of right now in those playoff positions. Number 7, Gotham FC, 22 points. Houston also with 22 points, sitting in number 8 spot. 9th place, Racing Louisville, 17 points, and Kansas City picking up a point against North Carolina in 11, bringing home the rear at 10th place for Kansas City. But this season, Lori, you gave us your prediction, or your favorite team right now, I should say, OL Reign. Marisa, I have to ask while we have you on, do you have a favorite team right now?
Don't take mine.
They're all my favorite. I got to get these coaches to talk to me. I can't pick a favorite. No, but I think at least the most exciting ones, in my opinion, I'm sorry, I have to copy Lori because, that's how I live my life, just trying to aspire to be Lori Lindsey. But OL Reign really is, we've just seen such a shift in them. And it's kind of like they are now the team we always wanted them to be this season, where they started off a little spotty. They weren't quite doing as well as we knew they could, given the talent on the roster. So I really have been enjoying watching OL Reign. Orlando Pride have been very interesting, just knowing kind of the background of how good the players feel under Becky Burleigh. And I don't think you can underestimate how important that is. Even when I talked to Alex Morgan at halftime, she's just been back with the team for a couple of weeks. She had her first full training on Friday, and she already can feel the shift that Becky Burleigh is bringing. And she hasn't even been super, super involved back at training. So for someone like her on the outskirts, a little at least, training wise, to feel that and to have such an emotion, I think that's so important, especially when things are this close. Listen, it's like the line of demarcation at this point is so fine. You need those non-negotiables and intangibles to push you through. I think Orlando has a lot of them.
The standings very, very close. We have 2 for OL Reign. Guys, I agree. OL Reign, they're so fun to watch. The evolution that they've taken from May until right now is just beautiful. And frankly, I think there is more to come for the next month and a half before we get to the NWSL Championship. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Yes, Lori.
Lisa, we need to know what your team is.
I love it, Lori. Thank you for calling me out. Honestly, OL Reign's been great. I'm not going to say them because obviously we have 2 already in favor of them. Portland was really fun to watch throughout the Olympics with all of their depth and seeing younger players come in. I'm a little ambitious and I'm just excited for the future. I can't help but watch that Portland team with all of their young players and think this team is going to be electric moving forward in the NWSL with all of their young talent. But honestly, Racing Louisville, they're fun because they're new. And even with the coaching changeover that they have players like Savannah McCaskill, like we've talked about, Michelle Betos, who have those leadership qualities that can make a team be really good. And I have given game predictions against Racing Louisville where they've lost. I say they're going to lose or they're going to let in a few goals, and they surprise me because they are constantly developing as a team and getting rhythm. So I'm going to pick Racing Louisville as right now. We're not picking favorites to win the whole league. We're just picking fun teams to watch, and that is mine for right now.
All right,
I approve.
I like it. Well done.
Well, approval from you 2 is pretty impressive. So thank you very much. And thank you, Lori and Marisa Pilla, for joining us. We are so excited to have you here. Reminder, give us a follow on Twitter at Attacking Third. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with a question, and we will answer it. Also available as video, Attacking Third on YouTube. Subscribe to us at youtube.com/Attacking Third. We also have full extended NWSL highlights on our YouTube page. Sandra Herrera will be back later this week for our news and notes episode. I know we all missed her. I can't wait to talk about her fashion on her vacation. For Lori Lindsey, Marisa Pilla, I'm Lisa Roman. This was Attacking Third.